Okay, thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for giving me this opportunity to give a background on the SDGs. And I would like to start by appreciating the role of the private sector in Sudan in advancing the Sudanese economy. And for your information, that the private sector in Sudan is absorbing more than 90% of the labor force in Sudan. And at the same time, we expect that the private sector in Sudan will also significantly contribute to the implementation of the SDGs in Sudan, of course, through a good coordination between the UN agency, the government, and so on. That is in the objective of increasing the standard living of the Sudanese people. And by the way, I would like to spare to the private sector that, of course, when the standard living of people increase, demand will increase, and then the supply will respond positively to the increase in the demand. So there is a smart partnership in this domain. There is mutual benefit between the private sector and the people when there is standard living increase. So we expect the role and the role that will be played by the private sector in our country. So, as has been mentioned, that the SDGs is, of course, replacing the MDGs, and unfortunately, MDGs haven't been completely achieved. That in this SDGs, we expect that the situation will be better. So as you see here, we have, and as you know, we have 17 goals, more than that in the case of the MDGs. And one important issue is that SDGs could be considered as bottom-top approach and not top-bottom approach as the case of the MDGs, because this has been agreed among the nations in Addis Ababa conference in 2015. So all the nations agreed on these 17 goals. So it came from bottom to top. Go back, sorry. So these 17 goals bring relevant and critical themes for governments to implement. So the ownership here is for the government. So private sector, UN agencies, donors are supporting the government for the localization and the implementation of the SDGs. This is one important issue with regard to SDGs. All to be achieved. No shorty here. All to be achieved. The 17 goals should be achieved by the end of the day. Yeah. So I just would like to focus on the principles of the implementation of the SDGs, which is make it clear that it is different from the implementation of their MDGs. So here, the agenda is valid for all countries. Developing, emerging, and industrial countries all have one agenda. And by the way, I would like also to mention that here in Sudan, I will speak about it by the end of these slides or presentation, but Sudan received a high level of MAPS mission in 2016 and also 2017. MAPS mission, mainstreaming, accelerating, and policy support mission to support the SDGs acceleration in Sudan. So this mission came out with a very important phrase that given the multitude challenge faced by the country, by Sudan, and the need for comprehensive response, if the 2030 agenda did not exist, it would have to be invented for Sudan. That means the 17 SDGs goals are very applicable for the situation of Sudan. So each country to contribute to global well-being through its national policies. That means all the national policies should be mainstreaming with the SDGs. And that is what is going now in Sudan, especially during the preparation of the PRSP. Now, as I know, and I am part of this process, that the poverty reduction strategic purvey is to consider all and to include all the SDGs. That the recommendation of the PRSP will be a different recommendation of the localization and the implementation of SDGs in Sudan by the end of the story. Each country to contribute according to its own context and capacities. Of course, with some support from donors and from the private sector as well. Okay? 2, 3 dimensions of sustainability: social, economy, and environment. And of course, it is very integrated. Everyone affects the other, negatively or positively. So we should have take all these 3 dimensions as integrated in order to produce a sustainable SDGs. 3, protection of global public goods. Global public goods are goods available on a global level, such as the climate, the environment. So national policy should contribute to protect and ensure sustainable use of global public goods. Protection now will reduce future costs of health, for example, and so on. This can be one of the public goods. So local decision can affect the climate globally. So it will be, the cost will be paid by other persons. So we should consider the protection of public good. 4, means of implementation. Each country to take responsibility to fund the implementation of the SDGs. That does not mean the country should use its just own resources. But of course, it could try ways of how to mobilize resources for the implementation of the SDGs as we do now. Domestic resources mobilization to be increased. And now, fortunately, in Sudan for 2019, the Sudan will implement for the first time the program budget. And we know program budget is different from item budget which have been implemented in Sudan for the previous period. So here, program. So there would be program in health, education, and so on, which represent the goals of the SDGs. So it is very easy to mainstream the SDGs with the budget, program budget, as if it is based is program and not items. Tax system to provide incentive for sustainable behavior. And for my observation here in Sudan so far, Sudan, depends on indirect taxes more than direct taxes. And we know that indirect taxes paid by the final consumer, let us say by the poor. But this is indirect taxes. But direct taxes, which on the profit and companies' profit, to far extent will be paid by the richest. So we should a bit shift to increase the revenue from direct taxes more than indirect taxes. Incentive private sector contribution. And that is the issue of today's workshop. 4, leave no one behind. This is very important principle in the implementation of the SDGs. That no goal will be achieved if it is not also achieved by the most vulnerable population groups. We have to reach out all the vulnerable groups in cities, urban areas, nomadic, and so on. We have not to leave anyone behind. Productivity involves groups that are excluded in policy making and monitoring. We have to monitor all the groups to be measured to what extent they have been benefited from the implementation of SDGs. Change needs to involve all stakeholders. As we see here, government, private sector, and consumers. So, 6, joint responsibility of all stakeholders, government, private sector, citizens, and research institute. So sources, a success requires the involvement of all stakeholders. Multi-stakeholders approaches will be central. 7, strong monitoring and review mechanism. Monitoring will take place at national, regional, and global level. Okay. So here, conclusion, essential elements to implement the Agenda 2030 at national level, starting with knowledge building, setting up multi-stakeholders approaches, turning SDGs to context, including indicators, ensuring policy coherence, budgeting and monitoring and reporting, and of course, evaluation. Finally, I just would like to speak about the mission that I have mentioned. It was to support Sudan for at least identifying the key areas of, or to be the priorities of the implementation of SDG in Sudan. This mission has, identified these challenges, natural hazards and climate variability. This is for Sudan, of course. Sustainable debt burden, economic sanctions. This is so far has been completely removed. Data collection, institutional capacity, constraints, gender, and geographical identity, inequality. So just back, please. With regard to data collection, we are in the UNDP has already started to do something with regard to data collection in Sudan. Because, as you know, SDGs implementation, we need to establish baseline. And then we need to monitor these indicators. And we know that depending on the conventional method of statistics, which takes about 4 and 5 years, will not, give us a chance to monitor SDGs implementation by years or by 6 months. So with regard to this matter, we have innovated the MPI, Multi-Dimension Poverty Index. This is in collaboration with Berlin University, and we used the method of Berlin University, and in collaboration with the Central Bureau of Statistics and with Zain company at a private sector. So we did a pilot in Jazeera State. The Central Bureau of Statistics conducted the survey. It was survey, conventional survey. Zain company through the phone technology. So we came out with a data from the survey and from the phone calls. And we did the analysis between two surveys, and we came out with a very strong correlation between the data that have been collected from the field and from the phone calls. That is to confirm that in the future, if we use the call phones, of course, not to replace the statistics by the Central Bureau, but to complement the data that provided by through the surveys. Because call phones can be done every 6 months, every year, not like the survey, which of course need money and human resources and so on. Now we are scaling up this project to be implemented in more 3 states in Sudan. Looking forward to generalize the project in all over Sudan. This is to assist us in UNDP, and it will be available also for you that to monitor the progress of the implementation of SDGs in Sudan. And API is more comprehensive than the income survey, income poverty indicator, because here include indicators of health, education, standard of living, and so on. This is one of the innovations that UNDP has started, and we will continue, and private sector is welcome to join this innovative idea. So the MAPS mission came out with these 3 SDGs accelerators. First, increasing agriculture productivity, because it is very clear that the agriculture productivity is declining, and we know that poverty in Sudan is highly associated with urban areas. Second, advancing gender equality. Do we need to advance gender equality? Yeah, that is what the mission said. And the third is reducing conflict. So, of course, this is not the only issue, but we have, this is accelerators just only for the implementation of SDGs in Sudan. And after this mission, there was the mission and an interagency mission came also from the headquarters, include all the UN agencies, UNICEF, WFP, UNDP, and so on. And this mission now has drafted the SDG framework for Sudan, and now is, reviewed by the government to be the final SDG framework for Sudan, and all of us government, UN agencies, to be work under this framework. That is all, and thank you very much.
So please remember, if we all help and do a little bit, it will make a big difference.